Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 108 of the Meet the Farmers podcast. I'm your host, Ben Eagle, and today we've got a vet on the show, and not just any vet. Very sensibly, this vet lives just down the A12 from me here in Essex, although his work covers the whole of the UK and Ireland. He specialises in dairy, and his roles through his career have varied from clinical practice, university higher education, teaching, working in the pharmaceutical industry, and now technical consultancy with a global animal health company. He has studied and consulted in a number of countries, including Ireland, New Zealand, India, the US, China, Sri Lanka, and South Africa, all on dairy production. And I hope he recognizes where that came from, because a lot of that was taken from his LinkedIn page. A big hello to Navaratnam Partheeban, known to all as Thebe. Thebe, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on. Let's start with our home county of Essex. Why did you decide to base yourself here?
Children, that's the big one. I used to be based in the West Country, and because that was where all the cows are. And because me and my wife are working full time, and I do a bit of travelling, we had nobody over there. Whereas my in-laws are in Essex, and my wife's from Essex. So
okay.
I think during lockdown we sort of decided that we need to sort of rethink life, and having the childcare really lets us do what we want to do. So
yeah, well, there are worse places to live.
So, it was lovely. Like it. I can't complain. I'm in a semi-rural location, and London's only 40 minutes. The coast is only 10 minutes. So, yeah.
But you were born in Edinburgh. Tell me about your life growing up.
Yeah, so I was born in Edinburgh. I lived in Scotland for a while, in Dundee and Edinburgh. And then I went down to Yorkshire and did most of my education there as well. So Scotland and Yorkshire mainly, but I sort of count myself as Scottish really. Okay. And then I did my degree in Manchester, and then went back up to Scotland again. So I've done a bit of a loop.
When did you decide that you wanted to be a vet?
I suppose I've always liked animals. So when I was living in Scotland, and most of my family were sort of based in London and around here, so we used to come down here for some holidays. My uncle's a vet, so I used to spend my summer holidays with him in East London. With him, it was only because I liked McDonald's, so he offered me a McDonald's lunch every time I went to see him. So he was my favourite uncle, and I only went to work with him for that. I didn't actually, in the practice, I actually was just playing with the animals and eating McDonald's.
So I love the irony of that, given that McDonald's are now sponsoring your Nuffield.
Well, exactly. They've been very influential in my life, haven't they? And then I think I owned gerbils when I was a kid, and frogs and all sorts. And I think just had a real big passion for animals. And then I sort of put the two and two together, and I thought, well, I want to do something animal related, but I wasn't 100% sure if I wanted to do veterinary at the time. So I had an animal passion and I had a science passion.
Okay, so hence why you went to Manchester to do zoology. First of all, you didn't decide you wanted to do a vet degree straight away.
Yeah, Manchester was brilliant. I'd never lived in a big city before, and I'd never lived in so much diversity before. So, I lived in little, Edinburgh and Dundee, and a little village in Yorkshire. And for once, I was in a big multicultural city. I was free. I was young, so it was brilliant. And it was a nice degree as well, because you're part of a bigger school. And I think Manchester, as a single university, is the biggest in the UK. So as a student population, it's a brilliant city to be in, and also you can walk everywhere. So it was a brilliant learning curve for me. And I think when I was studying there as well, I sort of thought about what could I do with this degree. Zoology was great as a topic, but it was when I qualify, what do I become, or what can I do? And then I think I really enjoyed the technical side of that, and I wanted a bit more of a profession, a bit more security, and I think that, and also my dream was to go to Edinburgh and do the degree. I had to go back to Edinburgh, so two and two together.
Yeah. Didn't you do some work with monkeys at that point?
I did, yeah. So when I was in doing my zoology degree, I had to earn some money because I was broke all the time. So they had a big animal lab. So I started off by working as an animal technician, and what I used to do is clean out all the mice and rat cages and rabbit cages. And also at the same time, I was sort of talking to researchers and just trying to get an idea about my future career. And then they had a bunch of monkeys there, and for my final year dissertation, we had to come up with some ideas. And I just thought, there's all these monkeys in these cages, and they're throwing all these toys in with the monkeys, but do the monkeys actually enjoy playing with those toys? Or,
Okay.
and also in the wild, they're coming across sort of blue, greens and browns all the time, and that'd be a natural color. But if we throw a red ball in, isn't actually freaking them out. So what I did a study to look at different colors and the behavior of monkeys towards
Wow.
different colors, and what it came out was actually they preferred brown and green, and they did not like reds and bright yellows. And it's actually a part of the protocol now for testing labs all over the country.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
It's a
Simply
simple
based on
pioneer
that.
thing. Yeah.
Wow. So, as you said, you went eventually to Edinburgh to
Yeah.
study veterinary. For any aspiring farm vets out there, what's a veterinary degree like? Paint us a picture.
I think the veterinary degree is very intensive. So it's not like a BSc where you have a few lectures and a lot of time to go and do your own research and your own reading around. It's a lot of directed teaching, and also I think you have to be quite self-motivated. So, for example, in the vet degree in Edinburgh, the first 2 years you don't really see any animals in university. Bookwork, you're learning all your
Wow.
muscles, all the bones, all the nerves and veins. You're learning, all the theory, and it's quite intensive. But you get to go and see practice. So you get to go to farms and or dog kennels and get that.
Okay.
It's all quite intensive. It's only in the last 2 or 3 years where it's more hands-on.
Yep.
But the newer universities starting from day one, because they know they need to keep vet students motivated. So the courses have changed over time. But but the other thing is, you're in your same cohort, you're with the same people all the time. So actually, it's easier to make friends because you're thrown in with these people. Because you've got long working hours, you're with the same people long working hours. So when you've got time off, they've got time off, and so actually you can build some really strong bonds among the people, and you all go through hard times together. So it's quite nice that you share that experience together, and you come out. And because vet school's so small, you build really good networks.
When did you decide that you wanted to be a farm vet and specialize? Well, and then I suppose added on that, specialize in cattle as well.
So when I originally was in zoology, most of my exposure was in small animals. And I didn't know, when I applied for veterinary, I thought to myself it might be animal research or small animals. But I worked on a beef farm just to earn some money before I went to vet school.
Okay.
And I just started, I enjoyed the challenge of trying to negotiate a cow through a gate, or trying to get a herd to go through a gateway, and also I enjoyed just the challenges of the different sides of the production. So you had the calf side and the cow side, and then when I went into vet school, I think I started spending more and more time on farms, dairy farms, sheep farms, and I think I just loved being in the outdoors. I loved working with the large animals, and I didn't have that same passion with small animals. And so what I did is, you had some choice in where you want to spend your experience, and I just put it all towards farm animal when I was in vet school, and tried to involve myself more, because I knew I didn't come from a farming background. So it was important for me to gain that experience and that background, so that I could have more so people could basically trust me more and let me get involved more. I think it was I went to Glasgow. I spent a lot of time in Glasgow and Dumfriesshire.
Yep.
And in Dumfriesshire was brilliant, because one practice basically took me under their wing, and they used to, and it was 90% dairy practice, and they just coached me. And I used to spend time with the partner every evening. He'd sit down with me, go through some books, talk me through things, and I think that was where I got the passion from.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of, honestly, if you look at your CV, it's just my mind boggles. But I mean, since you've done your vet degree, you've done all sorts of postgrads as well, including at University College Dublin. Have you got any more on the cards? Anything else else to come?
I think when you come out, you sort of start doing practice, and you think, I want to know more. I want to know more. And so for me, that was like, well, I'll just do this certificate. I'll do that certificate. And also, I think I was in awe of when you see them senior vets and they've got all these letters after their name, you just think, one day I want to be like you. So I was like, well, I'm going to go out and get it. The only problem is it takes a lot of time and a lot of money to do that. And I fortunately met the right woman and got married early, and the money was not there anymore, because I did other things. So I did what I could, and I did. And what also I wanted to do was something slightly different. So I thought, well, if everyone's doing the UK qualifications, is there something else I could add? So I did a South African one, I did a New Zealand one, and I did a and I did an Irish one, just so I could understand different systems and just be more useful. And yeah, I really enjoyed that. But I've done a postgraduate in diversity and inclusion in veterinary medicine as well, from the US. And what I feel is, to be more of a rounded vet and a rounded person, you can do all the technical revision, but I'd like to do more people skills and understand that a bit more. And but no, I think I've stopped learning, and what I want to do is I want to be able to create more action to create a difference. So that's where I'm going down now.
Yeah. So tell me about your first few years as a practicing vet.
Yeah, so I started in Wales, middle of nowhere, and in a little village, and there was nothing around me. And I always judge things by how remote they are, by how far they are from the local McDonald's. And I think the nearest McDonald's was about 40 minutes. So for me, that was rural. But it was a little bit, I think the only place we had in this village was a fish and chip shop that opened twice a week. So, I was there for that. But it was a really steep learning curve, because my boss sort of said, look, first 3 days I'm going to train you and then you're on your own. So I literally turned up to these farms, and a lot of these farms were Welsh speaking as well. Okay. So for me, I was not only living on my own for the first time, but I was working as a vet and trying to get to know these people. But it was great, because I think because I was learning from scratch, I tried to learn the right way. And I didn't have any assumptions about anybody or anything. And it was steep, and it was a hard work, but I really, really enjoyed it. And it was mostly suckler and sheep work, and it was one of the busiest sheep practices in the country. And then I think what I did is I thought, what about dairy? And I'm missing dairy work. So I moved to another practice, which was 50-50 beef dairy, which was a part of a big hospital, but I was a farm department. And then I fell in love with dairy, and I really wanted just to do dairy work. So then I went to a virtually 100% dairy practice in the southwest, and I worked there for a number of years before I moved on.
Are there any particular call outs or instances that sort of stick in your mind from, I suppose, examples of experiences that help shape you as a vet?
Always the first things you do is some things you remember. The first cow cesarean I ever did, I can remember it was the farmer that everyone thought, oh, he's going and my boss warned me and said, don't mess up. And I was like, thank you. That's all the confidence I need. And I remember going to this cow and having to cesarean it and thinking, please. And you have everything in your mind that you're going to do this right and you're going to do it this way. And when you start, you're like, I don't know, I'm just going to do it this way and follow this work. And to be honest, every day the cesarean went well. And every single day I rang that farmer up just to make sure the cow and the calf are doing well. And I think after 2 weeks, every day I was ringing him, and my boss told me, the farmer's happy now. You don't have to ring him again. I don't think you need to. And I was and every morning I used to dread, I was thinking of a horrible phone call coming through. But no, it worked well. And for me, I think breaking that barrier was great. And I think, whenever you do things like carving your first set of twins backwards, and you think, well, you weren't taught this, you just have to use your instincts. And I think those sort of things will always remain with me.
And then for a couple of years you turned towards lecturing, and you became a senior lecturer in livestock production at Cirencester. Why did you want to make that turn in your career?
So I really enjoy talking to people and communication, and I really enjoyed education as well. So that was also, I was looking at a role like that, and I enjoyed the technical advice. But also, previous to that role, I was working for a pharmaceutical company covering the UK and Ireland. I was traveling a lot, and I just wanted, I was dreaming of a job where I could come home every night from work and things like that. And Cirencester at the time was only 20 minutes away. So so randomly do you know what, I wasn't really looking for a job. I was flicking through the papers and I saw this job and I thought, I'm just going to take a punt and apply, but who cares, I don't. And got called for an interview and I thought, do you know what, I'm not going to get it. I remember sitting in the room and everyone else there were qualified lecturers, and I sat, they looked at me and I said, I'm just a vet, and they went, oh right. And I thought, I'm just there to make up numbers. But actually when they offered me the job, that was another shock. But it was brilliant, because I think when you're educating people informally, like from a practice or anything, you just do it. But actually working in an educational establishment and trying to learn the right way to do it and the different ways of doing it and how you impart knowledge, I think was a huge learning curve, but it was a really good experience. But the great thing with that job was they gave me a lot of freedom. So I was helping manage the calf rearing unit, the sheep flock. So I was doing some vetting for that. I was doing a little bit of vetting for some local farmers, and
Okay.
they also supported me with research. And we at one point we had the most livestock courses out of any agriculture university in the country, which they supported me setting up, and we did some great things there, which was great. So
Mm.
yeah, it was a great place.
And then in 2019, you took another step and you turned towards veterinary consultancy.
Yeah.
Why? Why make another move?
So I think at Cirencester they closed the farms, and I was heavily involved with those farms. And for me, that practical element was something that I think really kept me buzzing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when they closed that was one thing. The research was going down as well because it was going to a more of a focus of teaching. And I just thought, well, as the changes are going, this is a good opportunity. If I do want to leave, I'm not going to leave them in the lurch.
Yeah.
And also I missed industry. So I think innovation comes from industry, and then what happens is it filters through to all the other places. And I missed being on the cutting edge, understanding what's coming next, and having that influence. So I was looking for a job, but I didn't want to work in pharmaceuticals. So this American animal health company, they wanted someone to manage the UK, and now I've taken on Ireland as well. And it was dairy, and it was also heavily nutritional based as well. And that was a new industry for me. And for me, if someone says something you don't know, I want to learn about it. And so I love challenges like that. And so it was an opportunity for me to learn about the nutritional industry.
Yeah, I mean, you said that you like a challenge, and you're clearly ambitious. I mean, I'm really fascinated by what it is that drives you, and have you noticed, I suppose, over time, have these been different things that have been driving you? What is it?
Yeah, I suppose at the beginning, I've never been the best at anything. So as a child, I worked hard, struggled, but I was never top. At university, I was never the top, and I've never excelled at anything. But what drives me is I want to be good at something. And so when it started off with was I had a passion for cattle. I had to be the best at cattle,
Okay.
and I had to learn from anybody and everywhere. But with cattle also, there are so many different areas to cattle. So you can farm cattle, you can have health of cattle, you can feed cattle, and there's so many, and I want to understand it all. So what drives me is if something I don't know about cattle, I want to go and learn about it and experience it and talk to people about it. So I feel like I've been the education side. And then I think, and that passion's been really important, that technical cattle passion. But also I care about, I feel like I've had to struggle and push myself to do everything. And I haven't had all the opportunities. I've had to force the opportunities to create that. And then I think, well, if I'm actually in a position where I've got a voice and I've got a bit of privilege. Can I help people that don't have that? And is there a way I can use my voice and my standing to support people that don't have those opportunities? And so that's where I've taken on my next passion. And so I've got a passion for the industry, but I've also got a passion for people and uplifting and platforming people that don't have that opportunity.
Yeah, which is the perfect segue into the next question. Thank you, Phoebe. I want to turn towards the issue of diversity in veterinary and in agriculture generally.
Sure.
But before we do, I wonder if you can just take me through some of your personal experiences of prejudice, really.
Yeah.
And that could be in your career, but also perhaps at other times in your life.
Yeah, I
And
think
I should also say as well, which is something
yeah,
that Will said in his, yeah, if I say anything that is put wrongly, please
yeah.
do pick me up on it.
No problem. No, no. I appreciate that. It's I think the thing about prejudice is there's lots. It's like I always describe it. You've probably heard me before. It's like an iceberg,
Yeah.
and what you see above the water is extreme. It's easy to spot. You can clearly identify it. And I'd say things like using bad language, using the P word or N word, or people saying they don't like black people or brown people. You can spot that and you can say, yeah, that's racism. And that's the iceberg. But if you look under the water, what's the iceberg being held up by? And it's the stuff that you can't see, which is more deadly. If you have a ship and you go to the side, you can avoid the horrible stuff, but if you hit the bottom, it's going to damage your ship. And the same thing, it's all the bottom stuff that can really cause the damage.
Yeah.
And it holds up the really bad, the top stuff. And it's something that's called like everyday prejudice or everyday racism. And it's the things like people not trying to pronounce my name properly, or people not saying my name properly, or people singling me out or people who refer to me by my skin color, or something else of me rather than who I am. And I think it's those things that add up and add up and add up that mentally is more difficult to take.
Okay.
But also, I think as an individual, when I was young, I was taught by my parents just to stay quiet and you won't get hurt. And what you do is you learn to cope and you learn to just take it on board, because you need to go through life. And I'm not going to be the only person on earth like this. It happens all the time, especially anybody from a marginalized community, whether it's race, disability, gender, anything. You take on, you try and stay invisible to stay out of trouble, and you take it all on. But you also, and then after a while it becomes normal, and you almost have to educate yourself later on in life that actually that wasn't normal,
Okay.
and that actually impeded me. So I'm on that journey as well. But I think I've had lots of those incidences, and again, you can read up on it and all those sort of things, but it's one of those things that I think has impacted me, but it's also made me think, well, what can I do now to help stop it in the future?
Yeah. As someone who asks a lot of questions as well, this was something I was actually talking about with Will about earlier. I mean, what do you think are the sorts of questions that we should be asking when it comes to diversity and tackling discrimination?
So first of all, we've got to look at ourselves. I think we've got to take individual responsibility, about what do we know about diversity and inclusion and about the whole topic, and educate ourselves a little bit more. So because before we can ask the questions, I think we need to try and educate ourselves. So do as much reading, try and use social media, try and follow people who are different from you, whether they come from a different place, they look different, they speak differently, and I think embrace difference. Then once you come from a place, because the thing is, if someone doesn't try and then tries to ask somebody who's different all the questions, you're putting a lot of pressure on that person.
Yep.
But if you take some responsibility to go, well, I've done all this already, direct me more, then
Yep.
that helps that person who's already the person that has to put up with it all. So I think self-educate, be self-aware, and then when it comes to diversity, it's a journey. So you start by self-awareness and then you can move on to action, and then you can ask those questions. So what actions can I take? And when I talk about actions you can take, think about your own circles. You don't have to go and stand at Trafalgar Square with a big placard. What you can do is, well, sexism or racism or gender discrimination, do I hear that among my friends? Do I hear that when I'm sitting on the dinner table with my own family? And if you start to try and call things out just with people you are safe with, that's the journey to start on before moving on to anything else. I'd say take little steps, but start with being comfortable in yourself and your own experience and knowledge.
So you co-founded the British Veterinary Ethnicity and Diversity Society, BVEDS, which is all about supporting those working in the veterinary profession with issues of race, ethnicity, diversity, and discrimination. Tell us about that and what it's achieved so far.
Perfect. Yeah. So we formed in 2016. So basically in 2014, I was trying to do a lot on my own and I got nowhere, and people were shutting the door in my face or blaming other people. And so I tried for 2 years on my own and got nowhere. And so in 2016, I got so frustrated, and I think I was looking at Facebook or something, and I saw a colleague that I studied with. She was working up in Edinburgh, and she had written something. She was sick of sexism and racism, something like that she had faced. And I rang her up and I said, listen, we're both in the same boat. Let's do something together.
Yeah.
So she said, yep, okay. And I think that day we just started a Twitter account and we started a Facebook account.
Okay.
And I came up with a name. I think I was watching football or something. I came up with the name. I thought, should we just call it this? And it grew like that. So it started off with a Facebook account, and we had an open and a closed group. So the closed group was for people, either allies or people of colour, who could therefore share their stories in a safe space.
Yep.
And then we had an open group where we could share stories for people to educate themselves on, so news articles and all that. And we also started the Twitter account just to share things. And it's grown since then. So we created a website, and the things that we've done, like today, there's a new strategy released by the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons on diversity inclusion for the whole profession, which was good. I recently wrote a course on race in the veterinary profession for Nottingham Vet School. So all vet students and staff are going to be learning that as part of the vet course.
Wow.
We as BVEDS, we are we've created the conversation, and we've spurned a few groups in different vet schools. So all the vet schools now have a diversity inclusion group, some of which are BVEDS ones. I've also started the conversation in agriculture. So with Barbara and McDonald's, we created the scholarship for
There's
people.
McDonald's again.
McDonald's, yeah, they came. Well, McDonald's came to me and said, "Look, we want to do more," and I said, "Let's do some stuff." So we created a scholarship at the Oxford Farming Conference. So 2 people of colour can receive a scholarship to go to the Oxford Farming Conference and be part of the McDonald's scholarship. BVEDS, we were in discussions with a big vet group, and now there's 12 scholarships for people of colour to do veterinary medicine. Your fees are paid for your degree. Wow. With BVEDS, we've got more in the pipeline. So again, we're doing a survey in the profession at the moment, which is the first survey for the whole profession on racism. So we're surveying receptionists, vets, nurses, students, and we're going to produce, and that's with London Vet School and Oxford Brookes. We're first collating all the results, and then we're going to produce findings and actions on what you can do with it. So that's in the pipeline as well, which was released last month.
So if anyone listening would like to find out more about BVEDS, obviously you're on social media, but where do they go?
So if they go to BVEDS 2016 on Twitter, or British Veds on Facebook, or www.bveds.com for the website, which is being revamped at the moment. And the good thing about the website is there's loads of resources. So if you want to just learn for yourself and books to read or articles you should read, it should all be there. And again, if you want to get involved with BVEDS or you've got some ideas, just get in touch, because I'm always willing to talk. And we started off in the veterinary, but we do loads of stuff with equine and agriculture at the moment as well.
And then you've recently been awarded a Nuffield scholarship to look at how to encourage and support an ethnically diverse workforce in the agricultural, farming, and veterinary sectors. What's your plan for your Nuffield, and are you going to be impacted by COVID?
So with what I've done is I've done a lot of research on racism and educational racism. So my Nuffield was all about action. What can we do as an industry to support more people from ethnic minorities to join our industry, agriculture, and also prosper and be included in our industry? Because, if we think about our country, 33% of all children are ethnic minority, and 17% are ethnic minority. So again, I think as an industry, we need to be embracing the change, embracing the talent, and bring it in. So my aim is to look at what we're doing in the UK, so look at how we're recruiting students, how we're recruiting people, and also look at people here. Then look at the US, because the US has got a similar problem, but they've got a lot more programs and all sorts of things going on. And what I want to do is see what's worked and not worked over there. I want to also do the same with Australia and New Zealand. So Australia, they've got the Aboriginal population, and New Zealand with the Maori population. And how are they embracing, also with the Maoris and Aborigines, they've got their own way of farming, and how are Western types of farming and traditional types of farming sort of embraced together, because that's part of inclusivity, really. And then I want to bring it to the UK and think, well, okay, I've learned all that. How do we put that into a British model? And actually, what are the learnings that an organisation can take on and do? Wow. Now, obviously, America, New Zealand, Australia need me to travel, which I don't think is going to happen. I think Nuffields have been very good about that, and are aware that we are struggling. Yeah. And the difficulty is a lot of people, we're starting to reach out to people now to book their travels, but the danger is if we do that now, we can't travel for another 8 months. Does it go dead? How do you keep that relationship for 8 months over Zoom or over emails? You're almost like, well, I don't want to contact anyone yet until I know that in 2 months' time I can travel. But Nuffield have said, look, we normally have this deadline, but it's something that'll be reviewed, and we will work with you on that. So at the moment, it's given us a bit more time to think about how we're going to do it, and they have done. There are other things that they're doing remotely, so doing more interaction remotely and keeping us together that way, which has been really good. So, and as a group, the Nuffield cohort's been brilliant. I had a lot of fun with them, and I can see that it's going to be great once we all get to meet each other. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, hopefully it won't be long. Everything's looking good Fingers crossed. But
yeah, I keep seeing dates, and I don't know, I don't want to believe them, but
no.
to be honest, the first is I want to get rid of my children. So 9th of March is in my mind, and if I can get rid of them, then that's a huge weight off my mind.
Goodbye homeschooling. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to give that now.
And you've recently also become a trustee of the Country Trust.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a trustee of two places. I'm a trustee of an inner city farm in Bristol, and a trustee of the Country
Which
Trust.
one?
So at Werburgh's.
Oh, brilliant. Fantastic.
Yeah.
That was
And
I've done my time volunteering there back
have
in the day.
you?
Yeah.
Okay. I do some free veterinary work for them, and I just support them with their strategy at the moment.
Great place.
And why I care about them is because, well, with both of them, there's a reason for both why these two I chose. So I really want people. I think farming and people, the education for the public and farming needs to connect more. And the problem is, it's easy to connect with the people that already know, but how do we connect with the people that don't know? And I think, having a big country farm, and say opening your doors and saying, well, come and visit us, will attract the people that can afford it, that are aware of it, that have got a car, and have got the time. What about the people who can't afford it, who don't know about it, who don't feel they belong as part of it? And the best place is an inner city farm, because you cut all those barriers. So and especially St. Werburgh's, where it's in an area with a lot of deprivation, a lot of diversity, it's a great place where we can bring food, farming and people together. So the Country Trust, they only go to schools where 25% or more of school children are on free school meals. And what they do is they give the opportunity for those children to go and visit a farm or have a food experience. So it's children that would normally never have this experience. And that's why I'm really passionate about that as well. But what I really want to do, and with those children, you find a lot of diversity as well. And these are children that are really left behind. So I really feel like we're giving something, but we're educating these children who are going to be the future of our country. So with the Country Trust, again, I want to sort of be able to share and give what I can in that place as well. So I think with both organisations there, like I said right at the beginning, it's with people that are left behind, which hopefully we can bring along.
So you've got a family with 3 kids, which we have referred to before, but how do you manage to do everything you do, which is a lot, as well as having some decent quality family time?
I think I've had to learn to stop. I'm not very good still. I still say yes too many times. But one thing about me is I really start to lag after 6 o'clock or so.
Okay.
So I'm quite good at pushing everything in between 9 and 6, and then really slow down. I'm not one of those that can work till 10 or 11 o'clock at night. So I've been like that at university. I used to sit watching Neighbours at 6, and all my friends would start to go to the university to go and do this, to go and swat up for the exams, and I'd be like, well, there's no point me starting that, because so I think I think I'm still bad, but I'm starting to get better. And what I do is I do have boundaries. I try and set those boundaries. And when I'm at home, I put my phones away, put my computer away. Doesn't matter. No one can get hold of me, and sit in the room with my children and spend time. But I could do better. And I've started to learn to say no more. So it's still a work in progress.
It's an important word. Big question here. What for you is the biggest challenge that agriculture and veterinary currently faces?
I think that the biggest problem is embracing change. I think embracing change is always scary, especially for traditional sectors like agriculture and veterinary, where you just rely that people need you, so you just go carry on. You're a service, so why should you change? Because you're always needed. People always need to eat, animals always need to be taken care of, and so you can carry on. But when society changes, when the demands change, policy, we've got ELMS coming out and all these things, when that changes, then we have to change as well. And I think suddenly it's a bit out of our comfort zone to change quickly. Normally change happens quite slowly in these industries, and for change to happen quickly, and for change to happen that's not under our control, but it's happening because of society, it's difficult. But it doesn't have to be. And I think being uncomfortable is okay, and it's normal. But if we can embrace that change, but make it a strength, then actually we can come out 5 years, 10 years, and be a lot stronger than we were right now.
Yeah, great words. We always finish the show with the same 2 questions. The first is, if you had a message for the public, any message, what would it be and why?
Okay, so I'm really passionate about the industry I work in, and and to the public, I think you're not just consumers, you're not just the public, you are food citizens. And I learned this term recently, and I find it really interesting because you actually, because you're a food citizen, you have a say, you have ownership, and it's important. Your voice is important in the future. So what I would say to the public is actually start to take pride in your food, understand your food, learn about your food, and support your food, because A, if you do that, then we can provide the best food, and B, we're all supporting each other. And again, farmers work hard to produce that food, but again, they will produce the food that you want if you support them and work with them on that. And that'd be one side. And the other side would be, agriculture is so diverse in what you can do in it. Farming is so diverse. And so, if you want a career, if you want something exciting, if you want to be involved, you can. And there is always a role for you. And it doesn't matter if you're involved, if you love numbers or words or health or genetics or anything, there's a role for you. And it's just about exploring it and joining the industry and making it stronger, because the industry needs you to be part of it.
Brilliant. And finally, a message for farmers.
I think farmers need to be proud about what they're doing when it comes to food. They need to be proud about adapting to change. It's not been easy, and farmers have been resilient when it's been tough, both with climate, with the financial situation, with messaging. And I think farmers need to be proud and be happy about that. I think farmers, you need to understand that change is happening in this country in a lot of ways. So again, don't be scared and don't think change is against you, but work with change, and that will only make you stronger.
Well, Thebe, thank you so much for coming on the show. I know how busy you are, so to have actually given me some of your time, I really appreciate it. And I also now know that you're not great after 6 o'clock, so I thank you even more for that.
No, that's okay. I can do these things. If you ask me to do any sort of work-related thing or ask me a question about animals.
Thanks also to you for listening. I'll see you next time. Next time we are talking gut health with nutritionist Lucy Williamson and Dr. Sally Bell. So I hope you can join me then. But for now, I'll say goodbye and I'll see you next time.